what really pushed me into it was understanding how much people were getting paid for this type of work. Talking to other artists and learning from like rate sharing sites, you start to see how much money is actually being given, and you have to give yourself permission to think that you deserve that.
That's Devon Blow, and this is the Powerful Ladies Podcast. Hey guys, I'm Kara Duffy, a business coach and entrepreneur on a mission to help you live your most extraordinary life by showing you that anything is truly possible. People who have mastered freedom and ease, success, who are living their best and most ridiculous lives are often people you've never heard of until now. Are you ready to meet a ray of sunshine? Today's guest is Devon Blow. She's a creative, an illustrator, a designer, an activist, and her positive energy is contagious. For those of you who are regular listeners, you may remember her from our workshop for creatives that we shared as a podcast episode in 2021. She was one of our guest panelists on that episode. And in this episode, it's such a treat to get to learn all about her journey to being an entrepreneur, who she admires, how she works, what her creative process is, and ultimately why she would use her magic wand to make food, shelter, and healthcare available to everyone. I can't wait to hear what you think about this episode. Don't forget you can leave comments at thepowerfulladies.com. Well, I am so excited that you were on today. When I saw your name on the schedule, I got excited, and I was even like, you know what? I'm going to wear my fancy tiger print tracksuit today because that's the level of energy and excitement that Devon deserves.
Thank you. I love it.
Thank you. For anyone who hasn't listened to all the episodes, you were so generous to be a part of our conversation about women in the creative fields. We had you on that special episode with yourself and Elizabeth McGarry and Jess Goldsmith. And it was one of our most talked about, special events that we've had as a, KDCC Powerful Ladies event. And it was just us asking you to come and show up and Jess asking you to come. And it was so great that you were a yes there. So let's tell everyone who maybe didn't listen to that, who you are, where you are in the world, and what you're up to.
Okay. My name is Devon Blow. I am an illustrator, designer, artistic director from Los Angeles, California. Yeah. That's the main thing.
Living the dream, making art, making money.
Yes.
One of the things that I think is so great about your artwork is that it's like the color and the energy and the vibrancy. And even today, you've got this amazing bow and your hair looks fabulous and you're wearing bright neon yellow. How much of your art is you?
Oh, all of it is. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I try to put myself in everything that I create, and I love bright colors and kind of quirky, eccentric bubble letters and things like that. So I always do something that I like and then hope that it resonates with other people.
Mm-hmm. Would 8-year-old you be surprised that this is your life today? Or would it be like, of course, we've just been waiting for you to get here?
I think 8-year-old me would be surprised that this is what's happening. I'm surprised that this is my life in my 30s. So, I don't think, and 8 years old, I was doing bubble letters on my notebooks. And if I could tell myself, guess what? You're going to make a living doing that one day. That I don't think I would believe it. I wanted to be a judge when I was a little kid. So,
ooh, what made you want to be a judge?
I don't know. I have a law enforcement family. And so I grew up kind of going to visit my dad's office, and I would see the courts in LA and things like that. And I just thought it was cool to be a judge. And for some reason, that's what I wanted to be when I was a little kid.
It's, they're fancy, powerful.
Yeah, they sit in the big seat, right?
I was kind of bummed out when I've gone to jury duty and I realize while the judge is very powerful, like he doesn't really do most of the trial, or her,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Every time I've been there happened to have been a male judge. Um, it was shocking to me that like, oh no, the jury's the most powerful people in this room. Like the judge
Absolutely.
decides the sentencing and he kind of keeps it on, all the rules in place.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was always interesting to me because growing up, I thought a judge was like the decider.
Right. Yeah. I think that's what I was thinking too. And I thought it was much cooler than what it actually is.
I love that. So when did you pivot from wanting to be a judge to being like,
Mhm.
oh, I want to, live my life as a creative?
Um, I think I've always been creative. I was in dance. I played multiple instruments. I did art in high school, and then I wanted to write. When I was in college, I was writing, and I loved creative writing, and I was taking photography. So I was always doing like something in the creative realm. I just wasn't so sure. I don't know why it never occurred to me to do it as a career. Like little
Hmm.
things, like like writing is creative, obviously, and photography is creative. But I just never. I was just kind of dabbling in everything. Um, and then I worked as a makeup artist for maybe about 8 years, and I was still drawing and painting during that time. And I think I don't know. I think painting, drawing, illustrating has kind of been an outlet for me. It's helped my mental health, and it just kind of
Hmm.
progressed from there, like naturally. Like it wasn't something I was pursuing necessarily, like this is going to be my career. It was just something that kind of progressed into that.
And were you working for other people as a designer, or have you always worked for yourself as a designer?
So I actually worked for a creative company where there were designers there, but that wasn't my position.
Hmm.
But I worked with other artists, and we did lots of like events and festivals and stuff that were involved with art. So I was doing things in the art field, but I wasn't necessarily creating art while I was there for the company. I was
Hmm.
doing it on my own. But it was a nice segue into that because I started becoming more interested in graphic design while I was there because I was seeing it,
Hmm.
and still had to do some work within those programs. And um, so that kind of pushed me into that area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how did you go from working there to working for yourself and then
hmm
landing big clients such as Google?
I haven't done Google yet. Google's on my
Oh,
list.
sorry. Who's the big one that you have done?
I've done Adidas.
Yeah.
I've worked with the United Nations, the Los Angeles Rams, the Obama Foundation.
Mhm. So
There's
I
a
love
few.
that in my head, I was like already manifesting Google for you. So
Yes,
that's why
I'm
it must
ready
have
for
been planted
Google.
there. Because we asked everybody on the creative workshop that we did, and I'll put the number for that podcast episode in the show notes at powerfulladies.com. But we asked everybody what your wish was, like what can we manifest for each other. And so you said Google, so it's like printed on my brain. Devon Google,
Yeah,
Devon Google.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Google's my big one. I like that you're in the future with that. I'm ready for it.
There is this great
um,
book I read where a coach had people go to a party as who they would be in
mhm,
5 years. And
uh-huh.
everyone had to treat each other like that person in 5 years. So if you were going to write a book, you like walked around with your book and they talked about what is it like to be an author now? And they have some crazy statistic of everyone who's done this exercise through this guy that like 99% of it all made it happen.
Wow.
Like the power of doing that projection and like stepping into it and like really being it. I was like, wow,
Yes.
like I'm going to throw those parties every year if that's the case.
Yeah. Yeah. I truly believe that happens for sure. Yeah.
So
But what
going
was the
back to the transition, right? So how'd you go
uh-huh.
from working at a creative agency to working for yourself and then working for some of the biggest brands in the US?
I started working for myself while I was still there. So I was doing it
Hmm.
on the side. And I was going to, pop-ups and trying to build my website and build a brand at that time. And then I left there and went to another company. Um, and I was still doing this on the side. And this was like a marketing company, but I was still doing design and everything on the side. And then the pandemic happened and it turned from part time to full time. Honestly, the pandemic pushed me into it full time. I was doing
Mm-hmm.
it part time and kind of afraid to take the leap to get into it, just solely working for myself. And
Mm-hmm.
then when the pandemic happened, it was like I had no choice. So,
Yeah.
but it was a good push because I think people never really know when they can fully, you save money and you're like, okay, I need enough money to cover all my expenses. And, you know, when is going to be the right time to do it. And I just think it's hard to gauge. So I was glad I
Mm-hmm.
was pushed into it because I don't know if I would have ever, like quit my job to pursue it full time on my own.
I think most entrepreneurs have something that pushed them.
Hmm.
And it really is amazing how afraid we can be to like go after what we really want. And like, were you having stories with yourself of like, oh, I should do it. I should just
Oh
do it.
yeah, absolutely. And I was ready for it. I was a little miserable. I was every day I would work and I would think, this is not what I want to be doing. I want to be working for myself. I'm going to be working for myself. I would say that every single day. Um, and it was just like, should I just do it? Should I just do it? And yeah, I just needed that extra push.
There's a saying that God or the universe will first like hit you with a feather, and then they'll hit you with a bike, and then they hit you with a car.
Right.
First, like it's like we're not paying attention to like the opportunity or like that you can do it. Let's go. Let's go.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
because we talked a lot about in the creative workshop about how money is like this thing that can't be mixed, right? The whole
Hmm.
theme was, empowering creatives to step into like asking for the big retainer or asking for the
Hmm.
big project price, and that we shouldn't have to be starving artists.
Hmm.
How have you gone from, you know, trying to figure out how to make it work to being bold in knowing what you're worth and what value you're bringing to brands and companies?
That, and sometimes I still struggle with that. I think
Hmm.
what really pushed me into it was understanding how much people were getting paid for this type of work.
Hmm.
Um, Talking to other artists and learning from like rate sharing sites,
Yeah.
you start to see how much money is actually being given, and you have to give yourself permission to think that you deserve that, basically.
Yeah.
I was still like when I booked, I think my very like big client was Adidas, my very first big one. And I was still underpricing myself. Like they were like, oh no, we're gonna pay you this. And I was like, oh. So it's like so you don't realize, I think, until you're in it. And it's still something that I really struggle with, but I try to stay consistent. Like I'll turn down work
Hmm.
um if people can't meet what I'm asking for. I mean, there's always room for compromise, but I think that there comes, you have to know your worth and you have to stick to that because especially with big clients, because they have the budgets for sure.
Yeah.
And they're paying other
And
people that.
and kudos to Adi for telling you no, we're going to give you more.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
like thank you guys for being nice on that call.
Yeah, that won't happen. People are going to pay you if you're under their
Mhm.
budget, they'll pay you what you quote usually. So it was cool that
Mhm.
the art director there was like, "Oh no, we'll pay you this," because I wouldn't have known otherwise. And
Mhm.
I'm also learning to ask people what their budget is first. That's
Yeah.
important. If they are willing to tell you, or if they know, always ask. Just ask and see what they say because usually it'll be higher than what you're thinking, and then you can work with what they're telling you as opposed to underselling yourself.
Mhm. Yeah. So much of your art is also, your musings on what's happening in life,
Hmm.
socially, politically, personally. What was your experience growing up in sharing your perspective and standing up for what you believe in? Is that something that has always been a part of you, or have you been kind of developing that over time and did what happened specifically in 2020 pivot that
Hmm.
to for you to be more emboldened?
Yeah, I've always been, it's something that's grown with me. Um, Becoming more politically active and more socially conscious is something that started in college, um, and has progressively gotten stronger. I definitely was into it before what happened in 2020, but that
Hmm.
was kind of also lit a fire for a lot of people, and me included, to do it within my art, like to see if
Yeah.
I could express those opinions through art and if it would resonate with people or if it would touch people in a way that they would understand and receive. Um, and so yeah, that definitely helped push me into that. But it's always been something that I've been passionate about, and it's been progressively. It's gotten stronger as I've gotten
Yeah.
older. My mom calls me Angela Davis, so that just shows where my head's at. But yeah, it's always constantly getting deepened. I always see something, and it's never something specific. Obviously, I'm a Black woman, and that's like my main thing.
Hmm.
But like, I'm also interested in climate change and economics and things like this. Every single aspect of
Yeah.
social justice interests me, and I want to do whatever I can to get the message out.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
you're a modern woman, right? Like you care
Mhm.
about all the things. And I think
Mhm.
that's, you know, there's so much right now of like having to be left or right or this or that. And it's like
Mhm.
actually like I'm like all this, like I need a wheel to really
Mhm.
discuss all the things I want to talk about.
Yeah.
Um And I think it's a little frustrating that there's, so often people are getting pigeonholed into like, you can only care about one thing. And it's like,
Mhm.
who does that? Like, it's
Mhm.
impossible. Like, I can love my dog and I can love ice cream and I can love my mom. And like,
Yes.
so if I can do that, I can care about all these other issues that are, multi layered and complex and often all overlapping.
Absolutely. It is. And it's very divisive. That's a good
Hmm.
point, because when you think of it as being one thing or the other, it's incredibly divisive, and
Hmm.
you won't find any common ground. But when you have discussions with people and you realize that you have the same beliefs in certain areas, it opens up
Yeah.
the conversations more, someone may have a different position on economics or
Hmm.
taxes or things like that, but they have the same beliefs when it comes to racial equality and
Hmm.
climate change, all that stuff, universal health care. So you have to like find middle ground, meet people where they are.
Yeah. And I think that's a great point you bring up of, looking for the commonalities you have in
Hmm.
other, areas of interest or concern. Because we are so much more alike than the world is telling us that we are right
Yeah.
now. And it's so frustrating. And, I had a conversation the other day with a friend of mine about how I believe, and maybe I'm wrong, but I believe that it's like 0.01% of humans are like maliciously trying to be evil.
Hmm.
Everyone else thinks they're doing the right thing with the information that they have. They just, you know, have incomplete or bad information. And
Absolutely.
like, so people aren't out here trying to do things with malicious intent. It just looks that way based on the experience or perspective or knowledge that we have. And I think we forget that sometimes. Like even our
Hmm.
best intentions sometimes are still wrong.
Hmm.
And, hence all the people apologizing, in droves, it seems, in the past couple of years for something. And
Yeah.
I think it's a really interesting space that we're in right now. But I sure am glad that people have like turned their high beams back on and are looking at things and being aware because it's so easy in life. We get so busy that it's like head down. I'm just trying to make
Yeah.
it through the day. I can't
Hmm.
think about anyone else.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, you live in LA, so it's like just there's whole blocks that you can walk through and like how do you stop and help everyone or all the things you see going on? Like
Hmm.
there's so much happening.
It's so much. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I had to learn really to just do what I can with what I got. And so creating art
Mhm.
is where it is for me. Using, and
Mhm.
you know, sometimes I feel like it's not enough, but it's what I was given, so I'm gonna work with it until I can't
Yeah.
anymore.
Well, and we look at how much like you've evolved already in your life. Like, who knows what's next, right?
Right.
What is your favorite medium to use in art?
Um, Surprisingly, I actually really enjoy water paint. I don't use
Mhm.
it in my career, but I like to do it for fun and to clear my
Mhm.
head. Um, Primarily, I work in the digital space. Sometimes I'll sketch on paper before I move to digital, but usually I start straight on my iPad.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, that's usually my go-to. It's quicker.
Yes, easier
I'm a
to
little bit of a
erase.
yes, easy, much easier to erase, and I erase a lot. So I find it's funny because when I'll go back and forth, like when I'll go to paper, and it's like I'll think that I can like back something, like I'll be tapping the paper, like, oh wait, I'm on paper, I can't do this. This is digital.
I find myself doing that same type of like my brain thinks something different. Like when I'll get out of my car, lock my car, then I'll walk up to my front door and be like, why isn't I'll be like clicking my keys at my door, like unlock.
Yeah,
You're supposed to unlock when I push this button.
you're like, oh,
So
I
I
have to
totally
put my
understand
key.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it made me think the other day, like we have all the new car technology where like if you're holding groceries, you can like stick your foot out and like your trunk opens. I'm like, I
Yeah,
need that for the front door. Like, I still
right.
don't have a place to put the groceries down. Like, who has not invented the kick the door and it will open for me?
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that the trying to back click on your pad.
Uh-huh.
Um, so, and are you somebody who just has like creativity oozing out of you all the time? Like, are you waking up like, oh, I got to go write that down or draw it before I forget it? Or what does it look like for you to be a creative in a on the day to day basis?
Um, I wish I was felt creative all the time. You know, I get lots of ideas for different things. Sometimes it can be something completely random that like I've never done before. I have ADHD, so that is very easy to like make me jump from one thing to the other. Like I sew, like I have all this stuff that like I kind of half do, like half hobbies. Um, so it's hard for me to focus. One of the things I love is looking at other people's work and seeing how the awesome stuff they're creating. I find that inspiring. um I try not to get like the whole imposter syndrome or
Mhm.
um but it's helpful, especially if you have a creative block, to just kind of and do it without any intention, just looking at different colors and different palettes, different ideas, different things people are doing, and just kind of say, wow, that's really cool. And then let it sit in the back of your head, and it might pop up somewhere, differently for you. That's one of the
Mhm.
things that's helped me, I think, a lot.
I love that. Yeah, because I love that you mentioned the half hobbies and giving yourself that space.
Hmm.
Like it's okay to have a half hobby and it's okay to not be creative all the time.
Exactly.
Because and also it'd be probably very overwhelming if you were just like having to draw on everything you saw at all times.
Oh my gosh. And yeah, it's something I'm working on, but it's also something I've just come to accept. Like I have a
Mhm.
Cricut and like stuff that I don't use, and I'll
Yep.
have to do these things, and you just kind of like they bring me joy at that time. So I try to just look at it in that way, until I can gift it to someone else, or do something like that. But yeah, it's very easy for me to jump from one thing to the next. I'm gonna do, or I'll see something like on TV, like I can do that.
I know that's both empowering and dangerous, right?
Yes.
Mhm. When you were kind of pushed into doing this full time,
Hmm.
were you like freaking out about it? Were you like, okay, this is the time, I got to do it? Like, how did you prepare yourself? Did you put structures in place? Did you put a team around you? Like, what did you do to make, all right, I'm doing it, like easier than, or as easy as it could be?
I was oddly calm. And I think because the world was so chaotic at that time,
Yeah.
it was hard to be stressed about that. I mean, everyone was worried about getting sick. Um, it was so like unprecedented. People were that was like right in the during the lockdown when this happened for me. So it was like
Mhm.
I wasn't so much worried about it. That's why I think it happened when it did. Honestly, I believe that it happened for me at the exact right time. Um, because if it hadn't been during when I was worried about maybe like staying healthy or other, being able to find bread at the grocery store, toilet
Mhm.
paper, all that crazy stuff that was going on,
Yeah.
I might have been more stressed out about it. But I just tried to. Everyone was losing their jobs. Everyone was. It was almost like a collective.
Yeah.
Everyone at the same place. So I think that helped me focus in on what I wanted to do, and I was able to just create what I liked and hope, for the
Mhm.
best from that.
And then how quickly from when you like committed did you land the deal with Adi?
Adidas.
Mhm.
Um, that's a good question. How long was that? I'm so bad with dates. I'm not really sure. That was maybe a year. Adidas was maybe a year after I was
Mhm.
full time by myself. Yeah,
Yeah. Which I mean, still amazing, right? To be one
yeah,
year full time and then be like, oh yeah, this is my new
yeah. That was
normal.
yeah. It took maybe about a year for me to get like a big client like that, and then after that, I started getting many more. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, I was working with just smaller clients, and that was great too.
Yeah,
Smaller projects, and that adds up. So
it does. And coaching other creatives, there's so much pressure, I think, to land some of these notable names and
hmm
have them in your portfolio. But when we look at the variety of business that's out there and the number of people who need help from people like you and want to collaborate, you know, we yes, it's true that the bigger brands do have bigger budgets and they do have more
hmm
money to spend on marketing and design costs. But there's amazing projects at all levels. I think it's just
absolutely.
about right sizing how much you're going to put into it so that if you choose to fit their budget, you can, or like really talking them through it.
hmm
Um, what, different artists have different kind of setups of like how they work with clients. Some of them do retainer based things where they're like constantly doing, say, social graphics or working with them quarterly. So
hmm
there's more of like an ongoing relationship. Are you more project based? Are you more ongoing relationship? What's your favorite way to work with a client?
I like both actually.
Hmm.
I really enjoy projects. Um, that's always fun, but I also enjoy being on retainer and working with someone like on a regular basis because then you get to really know them. The
Hmm.
process becomes super like collaborative, and it becomes a little easier because you're just used to what they need, and
Yeah.
you can communicate it, and those projects flow really nicely. But yeah, I really like both. I like the challenge of doing working with someone new, and the structured point of working with someone like on a regular basis.
Hmm. Are you working from home still?
Yes.
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 What are the benefits and the challenges for you for, not just working from home, but like it also being your studio?
hmm Um, the benefit is not having to drive, um, not having to deal with like weird office politics or
Hmm.
people. The struggles are keeping a schedule.
Hmm.
Um, you like maintaining like I get up at this time and I work from this time to this time, separating like you eating or you sleeping, things that you need to do to take care of yourself from work is really hard. It's hard to
Hmm.
step away. I've learned that I had to like keep a section of my home just strictly for work,
Hmm.
not working from bed, things like that, because then it kind of melts everything all together and your bed becomes like part of your office. So I had to like stop doing that. And it's
Hmm.
really easy to do that. Um, yeah, but I love working like from home. I think it's nice. I always struggle with the idea of like, should I have a studio, like an outside
Hmm.
space? But I like working from home. Maybe one
I
day.
do too. Hmm.
Yeah,
I feel really lucky that there are places that I can go and feel like there's a different feeling of like when you like get in your car for the day and walk into the office and oh, I'm
right.
walking for lunch. And I don't know if it's like my story of what it means to be a grown up and be a professional when I'm like I'm really not a grown up unless I'm like walking somewhere with like my laptop in my bag or something.
Yeah.
But when I feel like I need that or like want to be around other people, I am really appreciative that there are coffee shops that let you work there or
Hmm.
they're shared workspaces, because it's just nice sometimes to remember there's other people around and to get
Yeah.
some of that energy because I'm definitely a 50-50 introvert extrovert,
Hmm.
and too much people I'm like, okay, I need to go find a hole and have a timeout. But none, then I'm really just like I it can be if I get too hermity I have to like rebalance things.
Yeah. That's hard, I think, too, because it's easy to
Mhm.
get into that and not realize it. And then one day you're like, have I left the house?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I need to go be a human, go be out with people. Yeah.
Yeah. And yes, I'm good at getting sunshine on my face. I'm not always good
Mhm.
at interacting with humans, not
Yeah.
on the phone or the computer.
Right.
So, as we're coming into 2022, are you
Hmm.
feeling like it's a fresh start for you? Are you excited about this year? Is it just another year for you? Like, what is it for you personally and for your business, and kind of where are you taking things?
I'm looking at it as a new year for new opportunities. I'm trying to look at it with fresh eyes. Um, it, yeah, I'm just hoping for more, big clients. Yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things that's tricky because it's like, it's just another day, and then it's also like, what do I want to do with myself this year, and how do I want to extend
Mhm.
myself and push myself out of the box? I'm really trying to push myself out of the box, and challenge myself in 2022, do new things.
What does that mean for you, pushing yourself outside of the box?
Um, for one thing, I'm starting to get asked to do like speaking engagements.
Mhm.
That is out of my comfort zone.
But you're
So
so good at it. It's like,
thank you.
yes.
Thank you. And like teaching, I was reached out to recently to teach like a workshop, and I'm like, oh man, that just sounds like not for me. But I'm trying to push myself into it. I'm like, okay, you can do this. Like, just push yourself out of your comfort zone. Just step off
Mhm.
the ledge and go for it. So that's really me trying to push myself.
I like it. Well, I've done so many workshops and classes.
Hmm.
If you ever want any tips, just hit me up.
Thank
I'll
you. Yes,
happily.
thank you.
There's a secret formula I teach people, so it's super easy and more fun.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, because it's like sharing what you already know should be easy.
Absolutely. Yes.
Mhm. Yeah. But I love that. And are you somebody who regularly is like really focused on growth and momentum and like further developments, or is that something that comes in waves for you?
No, that's something I think about all the time.
Hmm.
Yeah. It's constantly in the back of my head. And I'm constantly trying to think of something new and trying to, especially with creating content for socials, trying to think of what, people want to see, keep up with, all the trends while staying true to my own voice. Yeah,
Hmm.
that's constantly in the back of my mind. I'm not always successful with it, but I'm constantly thinking about it.
Yeah. And what makes that important to you?
I think it's important to stay relevant and not, and to keep learning, really.
Hmm.
We're never fully, I feel like I'm never fully there. Like I'm never gonna know everything. and there's always something to learn, and there's always
Hmm.
ways to be better. And I think you reach more people that way by doing that, by figuring out how you can expand and be better.
Yeah. I mean, I can't stop. I'm always, is it, I think it's half being curious and just wanting to like learn and do and see more things and
Mm-hmm.
like really feel like I'm taking advantage of what life has to offer. And
Yes.
then there's other parts of me that like it, I get bored.
Mm-hmm.
I hate doing the same things over and over again. And it's like bad for humanity if I'm bored. But like, that's why I think why I love reading and learning and like talking to amazing people like yourself and like, let's go do cool shit. Like, there's so
Yeah,
many things that need to be fixed or things that can be made. And it's,
absolutely.
how do we use our powers for good?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, sometimes I find myself wanting to shake people and be like, you have skills that we need. Get your shit
Yes.
together.
Yes. And
Oh,
people, I think we don't always have to stay within the same box either. That's
no.
something. It's like you can do multiple things. You don't have to just stick with this one like genre of, you can do multiple things and push yourself to do that.
I know I just got inspired by a friend sharing about their friend who like every takes new classes and then
Hmm.
once that class is done we'll go take a different class and it's things like a guitar lesson and then jumps to sailing or knot tying and ceramics and I'm like, "Oh, good." Like I feel like because of the pandemic I've been stuck in this space of like having to learn everything in the same box that is my office.
Hmm.
And I'm, having things like masterclass and all these other classes that I have access to online, but I want to be back like using my hands again. Like I have such a craving to like do tangible things.
Yeah.
And I haven't painted myself in, I mean, besides like a random project here or there that was for something, but like to just like paint for the sake of painting and just see what shows
Hmm.
up. I haven't done in so long. And I'm like, you know what? I think this weekend I'm going to actually like, I still have paints, but I'm going to go buy some canvases or buy a notebook that would make sense and just start seeing what shows up because
Yeah.
I see with a lot of people as well, the pandemic forced us into like putting in structures. Like we weren't being purposeful, like either
Hmm.
preparing to do this or being aware of what's like there were so many things we had to do
Hmm.
that I think there's been a gap of like putting just play and creativity for the sake of play back
Yes,
into our lives.
absolutely.
So I'm excited to put more of that in.
Yeah, definitely.
You had a great post and I reshared one of your illustrations for Martin Luther King Day.
Hmm.
And I loved what you said about, so often the same quote gets used over and over again and the same everything. Um, so you shared a bunch of illustrations with different quotes of his.
Uh-huh.
What does he mean to you and what do leaders like him represent to you?
Martin Luther King is one of those ones that it's really easy to get caught up in this aesthetic of um 'cause he was such a he's so revered, and he's
Yeah.
also he's one of those people that's loved by everyone, but it's really easy to get caught up into his more like flowery things that he says. He says really incredible, kind, he has all these
Yeah.
really kind quotes, but you have to people forget like the time period that he was
Hmm.
around, what he was actually, this was during the civil rights era. This was during segregation, Jim Crow. He was, he was jailed multiple times so for things that he was saying. So I think that's one of the things that uh is just often forgotten. And for me personally, I really love how radical he was. He was extremely
Hmm.
radical. He fought for the little people. He was anti-capitalist. He was, he had all those extreme thoughts, and people, I
Hmm.
think a lot of people don't know that. And it's like,
Yeah.
well, he was like, he was assassinated. I think people forget, that whole
Hmm.
part. And so to me, that's like one of the things about him that's really important to me. And at first, he was never really, because of how he was always presented in the media. He wasn't really like one of my favorite activists. I was like,
Yeah.
MLK, okay, like kumbaya, hold hands, like that's cool, but like,
Yeah.
like what else do you have to say? And until you
Hmm.
really read his like letters, his essays, things like that, and then you really start to learn. You're like, oh, he was,
Yeah.
he was very, very radical for that time. So, that was my thought process behind sharing that. It was like, I don't think people realize how radical MLK was. And he was these awesome, nice things too, but he was also very like, this is it. Like, we need to do this. And you're like, oh, okay.
Well, he was also like not a saint. He was a man, right? And
Mm-hmm.
you know,
That
he,
too.
so many of the photos he's like talking are very solemn.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I'm like, no, I'm like, there's like, he like laughed and was like,
Mm-hmm.
had family meals and yelled at people and got in fights. And
Mm-hmm.
like, it wasn't, no one can be a 24/7 visionary saint. Like, that's just not
Absolutely.
what it is. And I think you use a great word of like when someone's revered, like,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, we lose 90% of what they actually were as a
Exactly.
person.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that leads me to wanting to know who are other people that inspire you that are maybe alive today that you're like, they're badass. I want to hang out with them.
Yeah. Angela Davis is one. Um, she's another one who was extremely radical, but she's also very, very like has so many profound things to say.
Mm-hmm.
Bell Hooks, before she passed away, I think that was last month. Bell Hooks is also another one who's like, she loves women so much in the way she speaks about women's equality and just LGBTQ equality and Black women. It's really inspiring to me. Um, who else? Oh my gosh, it's so many. I'm trying to think of people who are still alive. Like current people that I look up to. Issa Rae is someone that I really look up
Mm-hmm.
to. I've been following her career since she was just doing web series stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And she had this show called Awkward Black Girl, and it was
Yep.
so relatable. I felt like an awkward Black girl, and so the scenarios she would be in were so funny to me and just so relatable. And so watching her career progress and her still stick with that whole awkwardness thing, because on
Mm-hmm.
Insecure she's still also awkward, and it's really inspiring to me. I love her. I would love to work with her at some point. That would be like a dream for me for sure.
All right. I surrey Google. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yes.
Well, it's like being awkward's real. Like
Yes.
I wish more people knew that their awkwardness was their magic.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah.
And it's okay
Um,
for it to be funny too. I think that's like one of my favorite things about it is like it can be funny. Being awkward is really funny and it's okay to laugh at it.
it's so funny. And it's maybe not funny when you're in the being the one like,
Right.
oh shit. But like
Yeah.
it's very funny, especially in hindsight.
Hmm.
Um, but we like it's it's more real too, because that's what
Yeah.
actually is happening. I think that's like why shows like Fleabag have done so well also,
Yes.
because it's way more interesting going back to like seeing a whole person perspective, right?
Hmm.
When you see them like having a win and then like what they're feeling and then like overreacting because it's real. Like this
Hmm.
is one day in most people's lives. It's just yeah, it's funny to me that so much of culture, especially through social media, is about like what's the perfect option.
Hmm.
And I'm glad that people are rebelling against that and like showing the not perfect. And I think it's really interesting, all these people who are creating like faux perfect, like faux not perfect. And I'm
Hmm.
like, this is why are we making it so hard? Like, okay. Um, But so I would love to hear some of your philosophical musings. What are things that you wish you could wave your magic wand and sort out in the world?
Ooh, oh man, that's a good question. I would end if I could wave a wand and end anything in the world, it would be hunger. I think
Mhm.
that sounds kind of cliche, but it's true. It's
No.
one of those things where it's like, why are people still hungry on the planet? There's companies that have patents on, I saw this video not that long ago of the company who has a patent on a specific kind of pineapple. And I'm like, are we putting patents on fruit? Like towards
Yeah.
people can't grow it? Just things
Yeah.
like, something as simple as people that the fact that people starve is blows my mind. Also housing. Um, I think housing is a right. I think food is a right. And I think healthcare is a right. I think
Hmm.
those are things that we need to live and survive. And I think those are human rights.
Hmm.
And I don't think they should have dollar signs on them. And so those are one of those things that I would change immediately if I could.
Well, and when we look at when there are smaller communities, right? I think
Hmm.
the rule of like how many people you can really feel connected to is like 150 at any one
Hmm.
time. And that would have been like the largest tribe size at some part of our anthropological journey as humans.
Hmm.
Um, but in a group of 150 people, you're not going to let somebody starve or not have shelter. Like it would be weird. Like
Yes.
if someone's suffering and they're next to you, you help. Like
Hmm.
it's what you do. Um,
Absolutely.
so it's like I I want the something that irritates me that aligns to your magic wand wishes is the level of thinking that we've deserved the things that we have.
Hmm.
And it's like, what? Like, in reality, what have you done? Did you build your
Hmm.
own house? Did you, like, everybody works hard. Everybody
Hmm.
does. So thinking that some people work harder than others, like, on the scale, it's like this close. Like, I work harder than you by one millimeter of a harderness, whatever that measurement is.
Yeah.
And we just, I think it ties back to people being unhappy with the fact that
Hmm.
they have to do things they don't want to do and they have to work in areas they don't want to. And because they've had like so much of this, like never choosing what they want,
Hmm.
eh, that they're like, well, I had to work this hard. So you have to
Yes.
be in pain and suffering to have it too. And it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like that,
Yeah.
hold on. Hold on. Like, how about we talk about the fact that you don't have to choose the pain and suffering route at all?
Yes.
Like, and I think that's why I'm so passionate about helping people create businesses that allow them to do what they care about.
Hmm.
Because the more people we can get out of the mindset of the only path is the sucky path that I'm on, for lack of an elegant way to say that, like that's we need people to realize that it doesn't have to be so hard.
Hmm.
It's never it's never like a vacation vibe. We still work, but like there's a way to really align the work where it doesn't feel like the world's against you. And because the
Hmm.
world's against you, it has to be against everybody else. And there's just so much of that because that's the every time you talk to people about the homelessness issue or food or whatever we currently make people pay for,
Yes.
healthcare even, right? It's always a
Hmm.
matter of, well, you can have it if you work hard.
Hmm.
And I'm like,
Yeah. And it's like, that's not necessarily true. And I had that conversation recently with someone when discussing canceling student debt.
mhm.
They're like, well, I had to pay all my student loans, so why should these younger people not have to pay theirs? And I'm like, really?
Yeah.
That's your only argument against canceling student debt? Doesn't make any sense.
No, how about like you wish you had it for somebody else? So yeah,
Absolutely.
it's or why do we have to have the student debt in the first place? Like let's skip a few of the steps.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, it's It's very much 6-year-old mentality of like, it's
It
not
is.
fair. And you're like, okay, time out, time out. Because there's so much space and for
Hmm.
everyone, and there's so many resources. And I had this hippie moment like one of the last couple of times in the grocery store, and I was like, everything we need, the earth has provided for us. Everything.
Absolutely.
So like where did it go into this place where we need all these systems and structures and all the things?
Hmm.
And I'm reading a great book right now called Good Morning Beautiful Business.
Hmm.
And it's about supporting the power of like local economies and like for-profit businesses to do good. Like this woman was saying how starting her business in the 60s and 70s, how she was so anti-profit until she realized, oh, but if we have profit, we can do cool things with it. It
Hmm.
doesn't have to be selfish profit. It can be
Right.
contribution profit. And she had this opportunity to live in an Inuit Alaskan village,
Hmm.
and seeing how, again, there was however many people were there. Every time somebody went hunting, everyone else would go to their house with a bucket because they would get a piece. Whatever we had, we shared.
Hmm.
And it's, I feel privileged that I got to live in Europe and see what people call a socialistic society
Yeah.
and how not socialistic it actually is when you're
Hmm.
there. It's just more choosing, do we take care of our people or do we not?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I, I don't know. I don't need a whole pie to eat by myself. I'm happy to give pieces away.
Exactly. And when you see things like something that really learning about gardening, like watching gardening videos was something that really struck a
Mhm.
chord with me because you see people and they don't realize how much they're planting. Like I would see these TikToks of people like, oh, I didn't realize I was planting a whole field of tomatoes, like by just
Yeah.
using one tomato, full of seeds. All this
Hmm.
stuff came from it. And you just start to think, you're like, wow,
Hmm.
couldn't we feed everyone? Like if we wanted
Yeah.
to? Yeah.
We can, right? Like
Hmm.
especially changing some of the agricultural systems that are there, right? Like even simple things like people participating in Meat Free Monday
Yes.
frees up more food for other people, not because you're not eating meat someone else can, but because of how much land and resources meat production takes.
Hmm.
So it's like there's so many ways to put things back into balance, and
Absolutely.
it inspires me that there are people thinking and discussing and worrying about this that you would never know from the outside. Right?
Hmm.
Like we know you care based on your art, but to know
Hmm.
that like how much you're thinking and watching and learning and like it's makes me hopeful who I have the privilege to meet through doing this podcast and the work I do, where I feel so much more hopeful than I think a lot of other people do because we're not seeing what people are really doing with their lives on a day-to-day basis.
Hmm.
And a lot of what we are seeing regularly makes everyone think people just care about outfits of the day and, you know, some memes. And you're like, no, like there's that's not what humanity has come to, I promise.
Right.
Mhm. I miss being able to go out and like hear people speak or hear like be in a room with people where you're discussing something that matters to the community or at a global scale. Like I want
Hmm.
that to come back and for people to feel safe to do that.
Yes, absolutely.
Mhm. Because you being in LA, it's been one of the strictest places during
Hmm.
COVID.
Hmm.
Um, what are you excited to have come back and be available again?
Um, I'm excited to start doing pop-ups again, like getting out
Mhm.
and interacting with people at shops. Some of this stuff is starting to come back, but I
Mhm.
still don't feel comfortable doing it. So I'm excited to the point where I feel like I can go out there and do it and not have to worry about getting sick. Um, Concerts, live music is another
Mhm.
thing I'm really looking forward to. but yeah, just being out and being able to not have our faces covered and not,
Yeah.
feel like we have to stay away from each other. I'm hoping that comes back. People keep saying this is the new normal, but I'm refusing to believe that. I'm like, nah, this has
No.
got to have an endpoint at some time. It's not going to be forever, I don't think. So yeah, I would love that return to that. I think we'll be much more appreciative of it once we have it back.
Yes. And having traveled in the US, like it's back to normal in a lot of other
Hmm.
places. Whether,
Hmm.
we can arguing the safety of that is for another podcast, but there's a lot of things that either have never gone into the California version of new normal or have come back already. And um, humans are so resilient. Like
Hmm.
give us an inch and we're going to take it. We're going to
Yes,
take it and shove our
absolutely.
elbows out and get after it. So for everyone who, actually, I'm going to start over. I'm going to ask you what we ask everybody on the Powerful Ladies podcast. Where do you put yourself on the Powerful Ladies scale? If 0 is average everyday human and 10 is the most powerful lady you can imagine, where do you put yourself today? And where might you put yourself on average?
Ooh, oh man, I'd like to put myself. So what's the rank again? So
0 is like average everyday human, and 10 is the most powerful lady you can imagine.
I'm gonna say 10.
Ooh, I love it.
I'm gonna give myself that. I think I'm extremely powerful.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that I would not have said a few years ago about myself, but I know it's there.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm gonna say 10. I'm powerful. I can do a lot.
You can and you are. Um, so for everyone who's now part of the Devon fan club, where can they find you, follow you, reach out to work with you, all the things?
You can find me on Instagram at Dev the Pineapple. My website is devthepineapple.com. You can email me through my website if you want to work together or just chat or say hello. Yeah, those are the two best places to reach me.
Perfect. And what would you like to leave everyone listening with? Thoughts, musings, a quote, your perspective?
I want everyone to know that as even when people tell you, you can do anything, it's actually legitimately true. No matter what, you can overcome just about anything. I fully believe it is in your ability to, no matter who you are. There are obstacles, but I think that there are ways around them for everyone on every path. So yeah, just keep that thought process. And if nobody has told you that I love you, that they love you, I love you. I love all of you.
Yay. And we love you, Devon.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being a yes to myself and the Powerful Ladies podcast, and just honestly being sunshine out there. We need more of it, and anything I can do to support you, I'm always happy to. And I'm glad that we're keeping you in the circle, because
Yes.
I need more people like you in my regular circle. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
All the links to connect with Devon are in our show notes at thepowerfulladies.com. Please subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening and leave us a rating and review. Those really help us to connect with more listeners like you and spread all the good stories we've got in the Powerful Ladies podcast. You can come and hang out with us on Instagram at Powerful Ladies. And if you want to connect directly with me, the best places are to visit karaduffy.com or on Instagram, Kara_Duffy. I'll be back next week with a brand new episode and a new fabulous guest. Until then, I hope you're taking on being powerful in your life. Go be awesome and up to something you love. Bye.